You've probably got one of these sitting in your kitchen cabinet. It's a mason jar, right? Super simple, you see them everywhere. But this little glass jar has this wild story of survival that honestly is pretty surprising. So let's dive in. So get this, the basic design for this jar was patented way back in 1858. That's 166 years ago. And what's really crazy is that a jar from back then is pretty much identical to one you can buy today. I mean, think about it. Almost nothing that old is still made the same way. And that brings us to the big question we're going to tackle. In a world that is absolutely obsessed with plastic, because, it's lighter, it's tougher, it's cheaper, how in the world has this glass relic from the 1850s managed to stick around? We started digging for the answer, and what we found was not what we expected. Okay, so the first clue to its immortality is kind of hiding in plain sight. Its design is just, well, it's practically perfect. It looks simple, but when you really break it down, you realize it's a work of pure genius. The brilliance really boils down to three things that work together perfectly. First, the jar's clear and basically unbranded, so you can always see what's inside and use it for literally anything. Second, its shape is uniform, so they stack really nicely. But the real stroke of genius, the best part, it's the lids. Just think about that one drawer you have, filled with plastic food containers. You know the one. It's a total nightmare of mismatched lids and boxes that never ever fit together. Well, the mason jar solves that. There are just two lid sizes, regular and wide mouth. That's it. And those two sizes fit every single jar they make, from the tiny 4-ounce one all the way up to the giant 64-ounce version. It's an incredible thought, right? A design from the 1850s just effortlessly fixes a problem that clutters up our super modern kitchens. This isn't just some container. It's a timeless solution in a world that's full of disposable, temporary junk. So, okay, the design is great, we get it. But in today's world, a great product usually has a catch, doesn't it? There's got to be a dark side, some corporate secret. So we went looking for it. There have to be something. The first thing we thought was, okay, maybe one giant company owns the whole thing. A total monopoly, just crushing any competition. That would definitely explain why it's so dominant. But it's the complete opposite. There isn't a single mason jar company. The design is an open standard. It's used by dozens of different companies that are all competing with each other. They all just agree to use the same shapes and lid sizes because that shared standard is what makes the whole system so valuable. It's a success story built on cooperation, not corporate warfare.
All right, so if it's not a monopoly, what about this recent popularity? Is it just a fad? You've seen it, right? Drinks served in mason jars at trendy bars, the whole zero waste movement with pantries full of them. Is this all just a temporary thing?
And it's true. If you look at Google Trends, online interest definitely peaked around 2016. That was right when that whole country chic, zero waste thing was taking off. But that trendiness isn't the reason for its staying power, it's just a symptom of it. I mean, a product that's been around for over 150 years isn't just a trend. Honestly, our search for a real scandal came up completely empty. The biggest criticisms we could find online were things like, well, they're slippery when wet. Yeah, it's glass. Or that they're not insulated. Again, it's glass. There was one legit point about older lids having BPA, but the entire industry fixed that way back in 2013. The fact that there's no real controversy was, well, it was remarkable. So if there's no corporate scandal, no hidden flaw, what's the real threat to the mason jar? Well, it comes down to the one thing it can't change, the fact that it's made of glass. And here's the real challenge, laid bare. You put glass head-to-head with plastic, and on almost every practical level, weight, durability, shipping costs, the price tag, plastic just wins. And these aren't small differences. This is the single biggest threat to the mason jar's future, for sure. And yet, despite the huge advantages of plastic, the mason jar is still here. It endures. And that's because its real secret to survival has absolutely nothing to do with market trends or business strategy. It's about something way more fundamental. It turns out the mason jar might never die for one simple reason: canning. Its survival is completely tied up with this basic human need to preserve food and, be self-sufficient. This whole idea is best explained by a concept called pinch points. Think of them as these specific moments in history, times of war or economic collapse or a crisis, where the ability to preserve your own food suddenly becomes incredibly important again. And you can see these pinch points all through history. Interest in canning went through the roof during the World Wars. It came back in a big way during the Back to the Land movements in the 70s, and most recently, we all saw that massive spike in home canning right at the beginning of the 2020 pandemic. In those moments of crisis, the mason jar becomes this amazing tool for resilience.
But here's the thing. It's not just about crises. If you look at the search data, you see this predictable wave of interest every single year. It lines up perfectly with harvesting and canning season. It's this enduring, cyclical tradition, not just a flash in the pan.
For 166 years, this jar has survived, and not because of some brilliant marketing campaign or a ruthless monopoly. It survived because of its simple, open, shared design, and its deep, deep connection to the timeless human need to save food for another day.
It really leaves you with a fascinating thought, doesn't it? In a world that's all about proprietary tech and closely guarded secrets, maybe the things that truly last the longest aren't the ones we own, but the ones we all share. What if the most resilient designs are the ones that actually belong to everyone?